What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. I am your host, Frankie D'Astoli. As always, excited to have you guys here. I hope everybody had a great and blessed Valentine's Day. If you didn't listen to my last episode, The Truth About Valentine's Day, you might find some interesting stuff in there. And if you did listen to it, I hope that you learned something from it and that you enjoyed it. I personally had a phenomenal Valentine's Day. I took my little daughter, Bernadette, on our first ever true date. Where my wife, Christina, made a homemade heart-shaped pizza, and I got my suit dry cleaned. I put it on. I picked her up in her bedroom. She was wearing her little pink dress, and we walked downstairs to her little table and chair set, and we enjoyed a nice heart-shaped pizza. And I brought her a rose and a little teddy bear that said, "I love you," and she loved it. And she was, over the moon about it. And I was truly over the moon about it. I will not lie. I was very emotional about the whole situation. And then after that, we got some ice cream, which is one of the disciplines that I have to keep through Exodus 90. I'm sure if you guys probably heard me talk about Exodus 90. I can't have sweets, but because it was Valentine's Day and a feast day, I was actually able to break some stuff. So I was able to enjoy some ice cream with her as we sat on the couch and watched her favorite movie together, Snow White. So it was an awesome Valentine's Day. Of course, I love spending it with Christina as well. And I surprised them with a trip to Disney World. We are going to Disney World in October. That's what it's set for. We'll see. It's a deep ways away, but Christina is due within 2 weeks now. So our baby boy could be coming at any single moment. There's already been kind of some things where we're like, what's going on right now is happening. So I had to plan it for a little bit further out to try to get the kid to be at least like 6 or 7 months before we either jump on a plane or road trip it. I'm thinking, honestly, we're going to road trip it. And we were talking about this. Like, it seems just like a lot easier. We're going to have 2 under 2 at that point. So I feel like road tripping is going to be a little bit easier. We're going to have our car, we'll have the stroller, we'll have the car seats, all of those things. So, and maybe we'll make, a 5-day vacation into like a 7 or an 8-day vacation by road trip. And we could stop in like, Charleston, South Carolina, or Savannah, Georgia, or somewhere along the way. If anybody's got any recommendations, I'm coming from Jersey. If you got any recommendations going down to Florida driving, if there's any cool spots to stop along the way where we could spend a day or two, please let me know, because I am not a traveler. Like some of my boys, like my boy Alec, like he travels like, I gotta say, at least like 5 times a year with his fiance Ariana. And like they are like key, travelers. They know all the ins and outs. Meanwhile, like I'm out here, I know absolutely nothing about traveling. The fact that I planned our honeymoon in Hawaii and it was actually successful was a huge accomplishment, because like that was just like very, very new to me. I don't travel very often. I traveled a ton when I used to work on my old job. I was flying all over to a bunch of different states, but like that was different. Like I was going there for work and like I would just look on the GPS, like, all right, what's around me? But like we're going to Disney. I want to do this right. I think the last time I was in Disney was like I was 2 years old. So I don't remember a thing. So if anybody's been to Disney and has any recommendations for us, please send them over. Or if you've maybe road tripped it from the Northeast down to Florida, give me some spots to stop to take the wife and kids. That could be fun. But we're super excited about that trip. And overall, it was an awesome Valentine's Day. I mean, I just had an absolute blast. My wife, always skills it up with the dinner, and it was her phenomenal idea to do a little date with my daughter, and it was a moment that I truly, truly will never forget, and I will cherish it. And especially, things are getting real now with the son on the way, and he's going to be here shortly. I've definitely been having those thoughts of like, man, these are my last few days of just kind of us three before we add a fourth. And of course I'm so happy about it. Christina's in the same boat as me. Like we're trying to cherish these like kind of last days with just Bernadette being our only child. So a lot of blessings, thank God. Just so blessed for all the great things that are going on in my life. I'm just so appreciative of it. But it was great Valentine's Day. If you guys didn't already hear, which I'm sure if you've been listening, if you're an avid listener to the show, or if you follow me on Instagram at Frankie D'Astoli _REI, we have our first ever Rosary and Real Estate event coming up. And it was supposed to be February 11th, but due to inclement weather with the snow, I did move it. And it is set for this upcoming Tuesday, February 18th. And it's going to be at the Tap Room in Haddon Township, New Jersey. And I am so stoked for this event. This Rosary and Real Estate came to me a little while back. It was probably back in like November that it really came to me while I was praying the rosary. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm surrounded by some phenomenal real estate investors. And, I identify as a Catholic first and a real estate investor second. And I just really feel like it's so important that we don't just pass on generational wealth to our families, but that we pass on generational faith. We need to be bringing faith into our households, really priding our family life on faith and on obedience to God and, the understanding of Jesus and our Blessed Mother Mary. And there's no better way to do that than the rosary. And over the past couple of years, I've become very, very devoted to the rosary, thanks be to God. And I've started Rosary and Real Estate. And to have this first event, I'm so excited for it. We are going to be talking, obviously, about the rosary, how to pray the rosary, why you should pray the rosary, what type of grace is going to come from praying the rosary and what it's going to do for you, and the type of person that it's going to make you. And then we're also going to talk about real estate investing and why you should buy real estate, what types of real estate strategies you should buy. And the cool thing is, everybody that's coming to the event that's signed up at this point is either an active real estate investor or an aspiring real estate investor. So when you come to this, if you are looking to get into real estate or you're looking to expand your portfolio or whatever the case is, you're going to be already surrounded in a room with a ton of, advanced and expert real estate investors, and there's going to be a lot of networking just in the group itself. That's a big part of the event. So you're going to learn so much. Honestly, I think a lot of people are coming to learn. A lot of real estate investors are coming to learn about the rosary, which makes me really, really excited because that's my jam. I obviously love the rosary and talking about it. But the real estate piece is obviously that second half. And the group is for real estate investors or aspiring real estate investors that want to grow deeper in their financial freedom and in their faith. So I couldn't be more excited for this event. You guys could sign up. The link is in my Instagram bio, Frankie D'Astoli _REI. I'm also going to add the link to the show notes, so you have them as well. I think I might have added them to the Valentine's Day show notes too, so they might be in there. But nonetheless, I'll be adding them to this episode. And this episode, what I'm really going to get into is how to buy property the right way. So this is going to be a real estate focused episode. And we are going to kind of break this down probably into a few different episodes, just because I don't think I'm going to be able to really fit anything in that kind of like 30 to 40 minute limit that I try to stay within. But the breakdown of these episodes is going to be, number one, the first one, the episode we're going to talk about today is comping real estate property. Right. So comping is finding comparable properties in the area of a deal that you're looking at. That's part one to how to buy effectively. Part two is going to be estimating renovation costs. And that is truly, in my opinion, one of the hardest things for real estate investors to do, because most real estate investors, especially if you're a wholesaler, but and that means like you've never actually acquired your own property. I'm kind of separating the two a little bit here. Think if you're like a wholesaler and you straight up just go from A to B's, right? You're getting property under contract and you're moving those to investors. It's very, very hard for you to understand renovations if you've never actually had your own property. And even to take that a step further, even if you are a real estate investor and you owned your own property, but you don't have a construction background, even still, it's very, very hard to really understand what your renovation costs are going to look like. So I'm excited to get that, kind of going in the next episode. And then that third episode, that third kind of piece of this series is going to be the deal math. Once we've comped the properties and we understand what the after repair value is, which I'll get into shortly, and then we understand what the renovation costs are going to be, we simply put together a formula to determine what we're going to purchase the property for and what our return is going to look like after we buy that property. So that is kind of the 3-part series. I may make a 4th part on lending, but I do already have a great episode out on lending. It was an episode that I dropped before Christmas. I think it was episode 6, honestly. It was all I want for Christmas is other people's money. And I talk a lot about kind of private money, hard money, using conventional loans, stuff like that. So if you want already that kind of lending piece involved, go back and listen to that episode. Like I said, I think it was episode 6, 6 or 7, somewhere around there. But this episode is going to be on comping properties. I'm going to drop an episode. It might not be the next episode, but an episode in the near future on estimating renovation costs. And then again, in that future from there to estimating deal math. And this will all make up the series on how to buy properly, how to buy property properly, in a sense, right? Or how to buy property correctly. That's really what it's going to be. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. So comping property. And also one thing I'm going to add to this, guys, is I put together a comp guide. This is a comp guide that I give to all of my students at D'Astoli's Dojo. I'm going to put that in the show notes also, totally for free. So it's nothing like crazy. Like, I don't want you to think like, oh, I have this comp guide, I'm going to be a master comper. That's not necessarily what it is. It's actually what it is just a guide. That's all it is. And I'm going to be breaking down the guide in this episode. It's a guide on how to accurately kind of go through the steps to comp property, because comping property is one of those key factors that can make or break a deal for you. If you comp properly, that's huge because it sets up the whole formula for what you actually are going to be able to purchase the property for. If you comp incorrectly, you're done. You're finished. Like you really, really wrecked a big part of that formula. And it's pretty much like if 1+1 = 2, if you put the formula in of 2+1 = 2, you're wrong. It's not adding up, right? It's literally not going to add up. So it's very, very important to understand how to actually comp property. And this is something that it's a skill. It's a developed skill. And one thing that I will say is like, it's also very, very important to understand your market, right? Because there's certain things that change as time goes on, and we're going to talk about that as we go through the comp guide. But again, part one of the formula is going through those comps. And as you're looking for comps, what you're really looking for is what's called the after repair value, or the ARV. So as an investor, right, we have an exit strategy. And I've talked a lot about this on previous episodes. An exit strategy might be to flip the house, right? So you might want to buy it, fix it up, and then resell it to an end buyer who's going to buy it and they're going to go and live in it, or whatever the case might be, right? Or it might be to use it as a rental property. So you might buy it, you may or may not put some work into it, and then you might use it as a rental property. Those two strategies, taking those two strategies alone, let's not talk about Airbnb or any of that other stuff. But just those two strategies alone changes things a little bit differently, right? If you are looking at a property from a flip perspective, you might look at some of those really high-end flips in the area that have sold, and that might be what your after repair value is. Whereas if you're looking at a property from a rental perspective, you might not necessarily be saying, I need to do all of this stuff in this house because I'm just going to use it as a rental, right? I need to do granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and, this, $4 LVP flooring, luxury vinyl plank. All of that stuff might not necessarily apply to you if you are using it as a rental. So that first thing is you really want to know is what's my exit strategy, because that could change up what you actually determine as your after repair value. And that's why knowing your area is really important, and knowing your exit strategy is obviously important. But let's just kind of, try to do an apples to apples comparison. So let's say that you are going to buy a house and your plan is to flip it. Okay. You're going to go in there, you're going to flip the house. You're going to look to see what are the comps in the area, what are the comparable properties in the area selling for, and what is the higher end of those sales that I can consider my after repair value. Meaning when I buy this property, after I totally fix it up and I renovate it the way that I want to renovate it, what's the house going to be worth? Now, when you go about comping, what you need to understand is that you need to use certain platforms to do this, right? This isn't like a driving for dollars thing where you could drive around and be like, oh, that's a really nice house, I want to make my house look like that. You need to know what these homes sold for and what the value is. So let's just talk about kind of the tiers of comping platforms, we'll call them, right? So tier one, the highest tier, is called the MLS, the multiple listing service. That is what the real estate agents use. This is really like the gold standard. So if you are a licensed real estate agent in your area, you get access to the MLS, and that is massively, massively huge. And just from a real estate investor perspective, the fact that my partner and I, we are both real estate agents. A girl on my team who runs my property management division, she's a real estate agent. We have access to the MLS. It makes things so much easier for us when it comes to comping properties and when it comes to determining what our after repair value is. Having said that, you don't need that to understand after repair value, to understand comping. The second tier is kind of some of these paid for platforms that I've talked about before, such as PropStream and Deal Machine. I'm going to use those two as examples. When you buy into PropStream and Deal Machine, PropStream, I believe, is $99 a month. At least at the time of me using it last, it was $99 a month. Deal Machine, they have a few different tiers. I personally like the $149 a month because it comes with free skip tracing up to 30,000 leads, which is massive when it comes to finding deals. But when you get those two platforms, you get access to MLS data, and to, I think in PropStream, you actually get access to cash offers and public record closings as well. So you're able to see what house is sold for in that area, and you're able to get kind of a replica of the MLS built into those softwares. The third tier is really those free tiers, such as Redfin and Zillow, which personally, guys, I'm not going to lie to you, I love Redfin. Redfin, I think, is top tier. I have the alerts set up on my phone. I constantly am getting alerts when any new deal or property gets listed in the particular areas that I'm buying in. It comes right to my phone for notifications. So I love them, and they're really, really easy to use for comping also. Sometimes again, it's just not like as in depth as the MLS. You can't necessarily pull like CMAs and do some of these other things, but it's still very, very good tools to use for comping, right? So you got to have a comping platform. That's step one. Once you have that platform, now I'm going to get into the guide itself to kind of help you go through how to actually comp. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to organize out your timing, right? So, and by timing, I mean when you are looking at a comparable. So let's say you're looking at a house, right? And you're determining what you want to buy it for. And in order to determine what you want to buy it for, you need to determine your after repair value. You want to look at what homes sold. Okay, we're going to start with sold. I'm going to talk about active shortly. What homes sold within the past 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever the case might be. Now, when it comes to time, personally, I would suggest staying within 6 months. If you could get good comps within 3 months, that's even better. But try your best to stay within the 6-month range. The reason that is because appraisers typically use that 6-month mark to determine what houses are worth in that area. So once you go to get it appraised, they're going to kind of look for those 6 months. But what you also need to understand is at that point, you're going to have to go through the renovations, comps are going to change. But if you're looking a year back, there's too much stuff that's changed at that point, right? And in some cases, the rates might have been very, very similar. So I could understand there could be some case to actually go back a little bit further, but you really want to try to stay within those 3 to 6 months ranges because that's going to give you the best pulse on what the market's actually delivering at this moment. If you see a house that sold for $250,000, that after repair value, and it sold 6 months ago, but then you go back a year and you see a house that sold for $300,000 and they're very, very similar, you need to go with that 6-month comp because it's showing you the change in time, right? It's showing you that within a 6-month range, the after repair value on these houses dropped $50,000 or a big percentage chunk, right? So don't go with that 300 grand because you saw it that it sold a year ago. Go with that 250 that sold 6 months ago. Again, from an investor's perspective, you need to try to be as conservative with your numbers as possible because things happen. Things happen. I'll start by saying this. You could buy a property and you could comp it out and it could be worth 250 at after repair value once you buy it. But then once you do the renovations and you go to list it 4 months later, interest rates could have spiked significantly and now after repair values have dropped, or supply could have increased significantly that the demand is not there to support it. So now you need to be price cutting yourself to get more aggressive to get an end buyer in there. So you want to be as conservative as possible, right? Because those things tend to happen. So when you're going in time, try to stay within the 6 months. If you could get 3 months, that's even better. Stay there, right? The closer in time that you can get, the better that it's going to be. So once you have your time piece, the step 2 is the distance piece, right? So now distance is from the subject property. So let's just say your property address is 123 Main Street. I want to look within I want to try to get my comparable properties as close to my subject property as possible, right? I don't want to be in different neighborhoods necessarily. I definitely don't want to be in different towns, and I definitely don't want to be in different states, right? If you guys are going to different states, we got a big problem over there. So obviously, try to stay within as close as possible. If you're within like a city, right? If you're in like, Pittsburgh or, somewhere in Florida, Jacksonville, whatever the case might be, try to stay within a quarter mile, right? And I remember I wholesaled, I got my whole start in real estate from wholesaling. I've mentioned this a handful of times, and I was based out of Philadelphia in the cut of Philly, right? And it truly changes block by block. In any city that I go in, I see this all the time. This is very common in a lot of cities. They change block by block. So you could be looking at one house on one block, and the next block next to it could be completely different. It could be significantly better, or it could be significantly worse. Either way, you just don't know, right? So you need to try your best to stay within that small distance from that subject property. So if you're within a city, like 0.2, 0.1 is even better, right? Quarter at like the most, right? If you're a little bit, more rural, then you might be going a little more of like a half mile. Like some places in Jersey, we're going a little bit more like a half mile, right? And maybe even a mile. Sometimes that's like pushing it a lot over here. But you might be in some real rural places. Like I remember I've comped properties in Texas that were like, these properties were like in the middle of nowhere where I couldn't find a comp for 5 to 10 miles and you got to go out sometimes, right? So there's going to be a lot of nuances with this. You got to kind of know your market and know like what actually, kind of justifies distance. But the best rule of thumb is you want to try to stay as close as possible. And again, going back to those platforms, this is why like the MLS is just like the gold standard, because you could easily categorize by like distance and time and all of this stuff. It's very, very simple. On other platforms like Zillow, like Redfin, it's easy to categorize between like sold houses, active houses, pending houses. It's easy to categorize between like, zip codes and certain things like that. It gets a little bit more challenging to categorize by distance, right? That's what I've noticed. Like when I love Redfin, like I was saying, it's very hard for me to say, hey, I'm looking at this property on Main Street. I want to know what comp sold 0.25 miles away. I don't even think Redfin has those. If they do, and anybody knows about it, please let me know, but I haven't at least found it. So again, still doesn't mean you can't use it. I use it still. It's still a great platform, but you want to try to stay as close as possible to your subject property and then work out from there, right? Work out from there to kind of understand like, all right, I'm out 0.2 miles. I got nothing. I got no comps in the last 6 months. Let me expand out a little bit more. Once you have that, so you have your time, you got your distance, we're going to go to square feet. So I personally aim to be within about 10% of the square footage of my subject property. In some cases, I've expanded that out to 20%. I never go past 20% unless there's like zero comps in my area. And then I really got to price this out, price per square foot. But really the way that I look at this is pretty much like if I have a home that's about 1,200 square feet, I want to look for homes that are roughly 1,080 to like 1,320. That's your 10% range, right? Or an easier way to kind of put that is just like 1,000 square feet to 1,400 square feet. That's kind of like 20% roughly. You have an idea of kind of those homes, but you're looking for those homes that roughly run in that same square footage. That's very, very important. I've seen guys get absolutely murked on this stuff. They will pull comps on houses that are 2,500 square feet where their property is like 1,300 and they're not doing a price per square foot situation there, right? And just to kind of go on a little tangent, a price per square foot pretty much means if I have a house that's 2,500 square feet and it's sold for, let's just call it 500,000, I'll do 500,000 divided by 2,500. And I know that I'm dealing with a house that's worth $200 per square foot. So if my house is 1,500, I'll do 200 times 1,500. And I know that my house after repair value might be $300,000 versus that $500,000 property, right? And again, that's more of an extreme case. You could do that on a smaller level. So let's just say, going back to that example, I have a property that's 1,200 square feet and I find another property that's, let's say, 1,400 square feet. I could do that as well. 1,400, or let's just say, what was it? It was, let's just say that 1,400 square foot house sold for 250,000. I would do 250,000 divided by 1,400. That gets me $178.57. I times that by my house, my subject property of 1,200 square feet, and now I have $214,000, 285. So I am able to still use the price per square foot method. I just need to know what the square footage is, right? If my subject house is 1,200 and I pull a comp that's 1,400, let me price this out, price per square foot, and kind of make an adjustment for what my ARV should be. Now, that gets a little bit technical, and I do recommend as an investor still utilizing that. But what you might still see is that house that's 1,400 square feet might have sold for 250,000, and your house is 1,200 square feet, and your house could still have a chance to sell for 250,000. So again, it's all market specific. It's all specific, dependent on the demand in the market. That's really, really important. But once you have those two other pieces, start putting together your square footage. Next, you're going to go to bedroom and bathroom counts, right? So at this point, now you want to look for comps that have that same bedroom and bathroom count. So if you have your, comps that if your property is 1,200 square feet and you put the 10% toggle in there or the 20% toggle in there, also start looking for comps that have similar bedrooms and bathrooms. So if your subject property, the house that you're looking at buying, is 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, don't use a comp that's got 5 bedrooms and 3 baths, right? Because that comp is obviously not going to be exactly fitted towards what your comp is. You want to try to get as apples to apples as possible. So you want to look for that stuff, right? Look for those, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, or 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, or 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. Is there a way to turn your subject property into a 4-bedroom to get that? I do that a ton, guys. I do that a ton. This is one of the best cheat codes that I found in real estate, or maybe not necessarily a cheat code, but like the secret sauce in some of my deals is I will look for properties where I could add an extra bedroom. For a few reasons. A, I do the Burr method on pretty much everything with me and my partner, Steve, right? We buy these houses, we renovate them, and we rent them out. That's our main prerogative. So we're looking to see, can we add a bedroom? Because we know if we could add a bedroom, we're going to increase our rents, which is important. And in most cases, we're also going to increase our ARV because usually a 3-bedroom is more valuable than a 4-bedroom, or I'm sorry, a 2-bedroom, excuse me. And usually a 4-bedroom is more valuable than a 3-bedroom. So we're always looking for that advantageous, bedroom or bathroom count to increase, to add to our ARV and to add to our rents. So when you're looking at that, that's a key factor. If you're looking at a 3-bedroom and there's a few 4-bedroom comps in there, can you add a 4th bedroom in there? Can you make it legally fitting and make it not like a little box where someone's going to pretty much be like in a cell, right? But that's stuff that you want to look for. I know I'm getting a little off topic there, but you want to look for comps with the same bedrooms and bathrooms. Again, you want to try to find that apples to apples comparison. And if you need to go with another bedroom or bathroom against your subject property, try to figure out how much that changes value. Right. So let's just say you have a 2-bedroom property and there's no other 2-bedroom comps that you can find. All you're finding is 3 bedrooms. You need to understand, like, all right, if this 3-bedroom is selling for $200,000, my 2-bedroom's not going to be worth that. So how do I really determine like what it's going to be worth? And that's a very, very tricky question to answer, especially if you can't find any 2-bedroom comps. I would do your best to kind of look back. You may need to go back in time a little bit. You may need to expand your distance a little bit. And you may even need to look at something else like along the lines of rents, right? What's a 3-bedroom renting for versus like a 2-bedroom? That could kind of help you determine the difference in value for your after repair value as well. At one point in the future, I'll try to make an extra video on that. But if anybody has direct questions in regards to how I really look at that stuff, feel free to DM me, Frankie D'Astoli _REI. Once you have the bedroom bathroom count, you're going to want to go to the next factor, step 5. You're going to want to look at the style of the house. This is actually really, really important. And again, a lot of times I see investors get murked here, right? So style of the house, think of ranchers, right? Kind of like those flat houses. You'll see them more in like, some of those more country areas, right? Cape Cods, those are like kind of like the more older houses looking a little bit like triangles a little bit. Multi-family properties obviously don't comp a single family house to like a duplex or a triplex or a quad. Row homes, right? That's stuff that I deal with a lot. The houses that are kind of all stacked right next to each other and they're connected. Those are a row home. Twins, which are semi-detached homes. They have kind of like 2 houses that are right next to each other, but then they're detached. They have space on the other sides of them. And then just straight up detached homes, right? Just regular houses that are detached. Those are all things that you want to look for. You don't want to comp a like interior row home, kind of one of those houses that's in like kind of a whole block of homes versus like a fully detached property. Because the fully detached property, if it's in that same area, most of the time is going to be worth more than your kind of interior row home. And you don't want to use that as your after repair value. So if that house sold for $300,000, you don't want to say, oh, my row home is going to be worth $300,000 because that house sold there too. You want to try to stay within that same style of homes. Now, this isn't like an end all be all. I've seen very different style homes sell for the same prices in certain areas, but most of the time they're either the same kind of attachment or detachment. They're either, a semi-detached type property or they're detached and they're still selling the same way, right? So that's a big thing that I personally look for the most is not necessarily always the style of the house, but more so, is it detached to other houses or is it detached totally? I think that's actually a really important piece. The next piece, number 6, is you want to look at the year built. This is actually very, very important. Stay as close to the subject property's year as possible. Don't take your house that might have been built in 1932 and comp it to a new build that was built in 2023, right? That's a massive, massive problem. And you are going to botch your after repair value and you're going to totally destroy your formula. You need to try to stay as close as possible. So if your subject property was built in 1932, really try to stay between like 1900 to like 1950. That's really like the biggest, most range that I personally would really go. And again, look in your kind of area, right? See like, all right, what are these houses? What are these comps selling for? What is the year range that's kind of going on here? If they're all kind of fluctuating between 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they're all kind of staying the same in price, you know that the market's demand is really just fine within that price range. But if you're seeing that houses that were built over 1950 are selling for 10 to 20% more than houses that were built below 1950, then you got to make sure that you account for that with your after repair value. Last one on this is kind of these comp breakers or makers is what I call them, right? So you want to look for aspects such as like, is the property on a main road? I see this a lot, and I've personally gotten burned with this a handful of times. If the property is on a main road and you're pulling comps that aren't on that main road, my personal suggestion is take 5 to 10% off of the after repair value. So if your after repair value on these other comps is coming in at $100,000, I'm just using round numbers here. If they're coming in on $100,000 and they're in kind of like neighborhoods and yours is on a main road, make your after repair value like 90 grand, right? Or 95,000. Take a little bit off the top because the main road does defer, or not necessarily defer. It makes people not necessarily want to move to a house that's on the main road. And I could give you a personal example of this. My wife and I, we live in a town close by called Haddonfield, New Jersey. It's a beautiful town. And we passed this one house, and my wife always says to me, she's like, that's my dream house. Like, I love that. There's the way the brick is and all of this stuff, the way that the whole house layout is and all of that. She's like, the only thing is it's on a main road. I wouldn't want it. And that's the truth, right? Like, I have a daughter, a son on the way, God willing, we're going to have more kids. I don't want my kids running around with the main road right in front of them, right? That's a big factor for families. And also just in general, there's more noise on main roads, stuff like that. So keep that in mind, right? Again, if you are buying houses to flip, especially flip, rentals too, but if you're buying houses to flip, you need to keep your customer in mind, and your customer is the end buyer. It's the person that's going to be buying your house, right? And again, if you're a rental investor, your customer is your tenant. So think that way. Does it have a garage, right? That's another thing. I'm facing one of these situations right now. We looked at a triplex last week. It's got 5 detached garages. I can't find a single property in the area that's got 5 detached garages. I have no idea how to comp it. Thankfully, I have an appraiser in the area that's done a lot of work with us. I've asked him directly, or I should say my partner Steve has a good relationship with him. He's reached out to him, and we've gotten some insight from him on kind of how to what we might necessarily expect as our ARV. So again, a little insider trading there. Definitely the more advanced you get in investing, you'll get with that. But does it have a garage? It's going to change a lot of things. Does it have a pool? And if it does have a pool, is the pool good, right? Is it working? Is it like actually something that people could jump in and not come out with a disease, right? Like, we need to know those types of things, because if it's not and it's bad, that's definitely going to affect what you can pay for the property. But if it's really good and you could tell that properties with pools go up in value, especially in some of these hotter areas and all of that stuff, that's a positive sign. And another one that I have just on this comp sheet that, again, you guys are going to have in the show notes is it on the other side of a major highway? So again, in my experience with a lot of these areas that I've worked in, and even in my hometown here, there's usually division with, neighborhoods by major highways. You might have a major highway, and on one side of that highway, the neighborhoods are really, really good. The school system's good. Everything is good over there. It's very family oriented, X, Y, and Z. And then on the other side of the highway, that's where you get the ring notifications about gunshots and you get all that other stuff, right? So knowing where that highway is, that divider, is really important, because you don't want to be looking at a bad side of that highway and using good comps to comp it. And then you have problems when you go for a refinance, or you go for, you're flipping it and you're trying to get a customer to actually purchase the property from you. So those are kind of just my, comp breakers or makers. Again, I'm going to add this entire comp guide, the PDF version, I should be able to add it into the show notes. I haven't actually uploaded a PDF, so we'll see how that goes. But if you can't get it in the show notes, as I'm making this, I'm going to find out. But if you can't get it in the show notes, go to D'Astoli's Dojo, REI.com, and I will add the comp guide totally for free for you guys to have as well on the website. So I appreciate you guys listening. I hope that you learned some good things about comping here. Again, the next part of the series is going to be estimating renovation costs, and then we're going to go to the third part, which is going to be deal math, and we're going to put it all together so that you guys can make sure that you're buying property the right way, because I hate to see people get burned, especially on their first deal. Trust me, I've been burned, but it wasn't always on my first deal. I definitely had a good first deal, thankfully, through my house hack, and I've had some good deals as well, but I've gotten burned on some other deals, and it sucks. It's not fun, and when you get burned on that first deal, sometimes it puts such a bad taste in your mouth that you don't want to invest anymore. So make sure you buy the right way, make sure you comp the right way, and we're going to get into some more fun stuff as time goes on. Get out to Rosary and Real Estate. If you guys can, I would love to have you there. We are going to be doing a gift basket giveaway. The gift basket is pretty much almost worth $1,000. I put a video on my Instagram up today of what's in there, but you're going to have a limited edition Our Lady of Lourdes sweatshirt, a book on the Rosary called The Secret of the Rosary by St. Louis de Montfort, a book on real estate investing by one of my favorite real estate role models, Ken McElroy, the ABCs of real estate investing. There's an Our Lady of Lourdes Rosary in there, and I am giving away a 100% off coupon to the Stoli's Dojo, rei.com. And it's for the wholesaling real estate course. So if you are interested in wholesaling, I'm giving away a 100% coupon. You're going to get the course for free. It's valued at $595. It comes with 12 and a half hours of online training and weekly group coaching calls where I go over your questions. I give you answers to those questions and we take action. So you actually start executing and start actually wholesaling and doing deals. But you can only enter into that if you show up in person, and you need to RSVP. So make sure you RSVP with the link. I'm going to add it to the show notes. But I appreciate you guys. Pray the rosary, buy real estate. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. And again, one other thing I will say, my wife is getting close to her due date. So there may be a lull where I'm not dropping as many episodes. I am going to try to pre-record a few more things, and they're not going to be such deep, dense episodes. I'm going to try to pre-record just some kind of quick hit, like 10, 15-minute episodes to try to throw out there as this time's going on. But I don't necessarily know. So if you don't see me dropping so much, that's probably why. And if you can, pray for a safe pregnancy, a safe delivery, and a healthy baby boy. So I appreciate you guys. Have a great day. As always, pray the rosary, buy real estate, and peace out.